Last week, Chicago played host to the annual conference of the Ugandan North American Association. The conference gives Diaspora Ugandans a chance to get together to discuss business, Ugandan politics, and U.S.-Uganda relations. This year's conference drew a number of top Ugandan officials, including the country's First Lady, Janet Museveni. Moses Wilson is originally from Uganda. During this year's conference, he was elected president of the Ugandan North American Association. Wilson gives me a little history on the Ugandan diaspora.
Ugandans in the diaspora started to appear during the time of Idi Amin. It is estimated that today we have in the region of 1 million Ugandans living outside of Uganda in the diaspora. Of the million, roughly 100,000 live in North America, the two countries of the United States and Canada. A significant, I would say the majority, actually live in other countries in Africa, Kenya, Zambia, and places like that. And then I would say the second largest group of Ugandans in diaspora live in Europe, England to be specific. England probably has a couple 100,000 Ugandans by itself.
Can you give us an idea how much they contribute to the Ugandan economy?
There is the actual fact and there's a political fact. The Ugandan government says that Ugandans in the diaspora contribute in the region of $500 million to $700 million per year. However, that computation is somewhat misplaced because they base that on the amount of money that comes into Uganda that is not sent to purchase or acquire anything. So you're lumping in their money that is brought in by NGOs. Money that's coming in because of the United Nations, but not going out. The true value of the contribution that Ugandans in diaspora make is probably around $300 to $400 million a year.
Does that give them clout? Does that mean that back home they are listened to politically?
It should give them clout, but no, they're not listened to. And I have to be careful. The government takes them into serious consideration, but does not listen to them. The Uganda government's annual budget is about $1.7 billion a year, of which we in the diaspora send in $300 to $400 million. This is money coming in to help our family and friends and that sort of thing. That's a good 30%, 20 to 30% of the total national budget. So that should give us clout. But we as Ugandans in diaspora are not united enough to do much in the way of demand. Now, there has been some things that have been done. For example, we did unite to demand dual citizenship, that the government considers that. And the government has been considering that for the past 10 years. And even to this date, in as much as they have held out the promise of dual citizenship and they've said they passed it as a law, it's still an incomplete law. So we have the capacity for significant political clout, yes.
And what advantage would dual citizenship have for Ugandans in the diaspora?
In as much as most of us Ugandans have immigrated out here, we do relate ourselves back home. And so government laws in some cases would prohibit us, if we became naturalized, let's say, into the United States, would prohibit us from owning land, from inheriting, things like that. So we'd be completely torn apart from our heritage. By becoming dual citizenship, we can then go back and claim our heritage and say, we're Ugandans, we can inherit, we can buy land, we can do this and the other. So the travel component of it, not so much. Quite frankly, if you have a U.S. or Canadian passport, you can go more places much easier than you would on a Ugandan passport. Yes, it costs a little money to go into Uganda now, but that is not so much a consideration. It's just that we don't want to be disinherited.
All right, but that would definitely increase your clout within Uganda, and the government would maybe like to defer that.
That would, because then the next question that comes up is, can we vote? And let's be fair. Let's be honest. A significant number of Ugandans living outside of Uganda are in opposition to the current government. Okay, that's moving somewhat into the political direction, but that's a reality. And if that number of Ugandans are granted the ability to vote, then yes, it could very easily influence the political future of Uganda. So the government somewhat equivocates here. Yes, we want you to be citizens because if you feel a connection to the country, you will bring more money in. You will bring your money because you intend to retire and that sort of thing. So we see the value of it. But at the same time, if we give you the right to vote, then you might come and meddle with what we want to do at a political level.
You're listening to Worldview from Chicago Public Radio. I'm Jerome McDonald, talking with Moses Wilson, president of the Ugandan North American Association. Their annual conference just took place in Chicago. One of the interesting things about the conference is the First Lady came, Janet Museveni. She's also a minister in government now, and this caused some amount of controversy. She's a minister for northern Uganda. What happened?
As I said, there are members of our community who are opposed to the current government in any form. And in this particular case, the First Lady was invited in her capacity as a minister, not necessarily a representative of the NRM government, the current government, but in her capacity as a minister who has jurisdiction over a significant portion of northern Uganda. So where we have conflict, she is directly responsible. So if I can put it simply, she was invited to come here and answer questions. What is going wrong? What is going right? That sort of thing. However, you do have people who are opposed to the government in any form. And so that's where the conflict is.
Just having a First Lady as a minister of government and in charge of the area that's most controversial, why does that happen?
It is very unusual. And there are a lot of people who are opposed to this at many levels. There are those who are saying that the reason why she was selected to be minister was because the current president wanted more direct control over what happened, wanted to give the impression that he was directing attention to that area. And there are others who are saying, no, you have a lot of money that's coming into the government that's being directed for rehabilitation in that area, and the president wanted more control over that money, that sort of thing. I think what we need to do is to look at what is of value, what is a benefit to the people of northern Uganda in that instant, and put politics aside. And if the First Lady being minister is superior to what we had before, then she should be given the opportunity to do that. However, if the First Lady, having First Lady as minister is not superior, then that is an issue that needs to be addressed.
What do you think? Do you think she's better or worse? I mean, she hasn't been in the job very long.
The issue of northern Uganda is very complicated. We can look at it and say in very simple terms, you have a horrific situation there that needs to be addressed. We here in America automatically say, okay, that's automatic. It's a no-brainer. We should know it. Everybody should be on the same page here. But quite frankly, the issue of northern Uganda is a political situation also. You have people who are fighting the government at a political level. They really don't have an interest in northern Uganda per se, but they just are in opposition. It is, and I'm going to be very, very careful here. If the First Lady being the minister in charge of northern Uganda benefits and can turn the attention of the government of Uganda more firmly towards seeking a resolution to the problems in Uganda, better than has been done before, then yes, I support it. If, however, it is a political move, and it's just a matter of trying to put a face so that you keep people quiet, then I'm opposed to it. At this particular point, the reports that we are receiving, understanding that we're 10,000 miles away from Uganda, the reports we are receiving are that the government is turning significant attention towards northern Uganda because the First Lady is now in charge of a significant portion of it.
She's not the only member of President Museveni's family who's in charge of things in Uganda. There's lots of them in important ministries and security details.
Nepotism is an absolutely horrible thing. Unfortunately, our African culture is based on that. If you look at our kingdoms, you had the king, and his most loyal subjects were his family. Kings, we had multiple kings. In many ways, and this is probably going to get me in trouble at some point, in many ways we have a similar situation. We have a dynasty of sorts, and when you have a dynasty of sorts, your most loyal subjects happen to be the people who are most closely related to you and most dependent on you. So I think to some degree we have that situation, and it's a part of our history. We have now progressed to modern times where we are beginning to be influenced by the concept of democracy, of representation, of fairness. I want you to judge me based on the character of my character, the content of my character, that sort of thing, my abilities. And so we are beginning to demand more and more and more. And quite frankly, a time has to come when Africa goes that way. And there are many nations out there, African nations out there, that are beginning to look at it and say, you know what, this process of nepotism and I'm in charge and I own the whole thing, that can't last too long. And they're going that way. And I think at some particular point, Uganda is going to have to go that way.
Does the Ugandan North America Association speak with one voice to Washington? Do they have influence on the U.S. government and its policies towards Uganda?
The answer to that is no. And that is because as an organization, as a community here, we're not united. We're not. The objectives of this organization were to unite us. And if you look at the Constitution, it's very clear. Everything that the organization is supposed to do is supposed to unite us as Ugandans. But we bring with us a history of division. Uganda has got 26 different tribes, 50 some odd different languages or dialects. And in Uganda, those divide us. Now, when we first come here, we identify ourselves as refugees and as refugees from Uganda, and we're united under that. But after some time, our tribal differences, our ethnic differences, our religious differences begin to rear up. So we're unable to speak as one voice. Do we have the capacity to have influence in Washington? Significantly so. But you then look at to influence Washington in what way? There are those who say we should unite, go to Washington, and demand that Washington insist on democracy. Well, that may not necessarily be in the best interest of Washington at this particular point or any other point. At the same time, understand that even though we're 100,000 of us, we are not all of one political party. We do not support one political party. So there are those who are going to say, well, we're totally against the current NRM government. And then you're going to have an equal number on the other side who say, no, we support it completely. Well, there you are. That's part of the big problem with UNA right now.
Do you feel like there's a sector of the Ugandan community that has Washington's ear more than another sector?
I don't think so. Yes, there's a saying that the squeaky wheel will get the oil, but that hasn't happened. We really have not united. Even within the different components of our community, we have not united to that point. We have the capacity to do it. Now, yes, we understand and we totally support the move for peace in northern Uganda. So in that respect, we can speak as one voice. Nobody equivocates in that way. We all agree with that. But because we are so separated and so segregated in so many other ways, we cannot speak as one voice. So what happens is you have representatives that go to Washington, but the representatives are 10, 20, 30 at most, when we are 100,000. You see? So, no, we do not have that level of political influence in Washington yet, but we're always hopeful.
You have these Ugandan North American Association conferences on an annual basis. Do you thrash these things out? Is the tide direction moving anywhere? Because you've got lots of conferences and panels that are plenty political. They're plenty controversial.
Even after 21 years, this is the 21st year we're doing this, we're still trying to figure out who we are. And that's one of the problems, because we have brought this baggage with us from Uganda that separates us as Baganda, Basoga, all these other tribes, as Catholics and Muslims and all that sort of stuff, that we've been thrashing this out for the last 21 years and have been unable to come up and say, okay, let's unite and go forward. That is front and center, more so than ever before in this particular convention, where finally there are enough people who are saying, we've been here long enough, we have attained a degree of economic affluence. This is just ridiculous. There's 100,000 of us. Let's finally do something. And so that's being thrashed out. Now, if we can finally put this to rest, and we can now start saying, hey, look, let's unite and get something done, then you're going to find that in the next few years, we're going to start uniting under actual objectives and actual achievements. Then you're going to start seeing us actually achieving things.
What was the Ugandan North American Association founded to do?
The association was founded 21 years ago. A number of Ugandans came together and said, hey, we're immigrants in this country. It's time for us to try and help each other survive first and thrive. And in the next few years, they created a constitution which had very clearly delineated objectives, and those were to promote the social, the cultural, and economic development of Ugandans in North America. Now, understand, even as they were creating the constitution, they recognized that there were problems in Uganda. They recognized that we need to help our people back home come out themselves, get developed, and all that sort of thing. But they very consciously decided we need to concentrate on the community here, because if we can make this community become more economically strong, then we in turn can help develop our country.
Did it work?
To some degree it has. There are those who understood and appreciated the intent of the organization. People who come to the conventions and follow one of the objectives. If it's social, they come to meet their friends. If it's cultural, you come and you speak your own language, eat your own food. So in that case, we do that. There are those of us who come for business reasons. We come to network. And a number of businesses have come into fruition because of this convention. In many ways, it has been very successful. One of the interesting success stories is that Ugandans come to these conventions, especially single Ugandans, to meet other single Ugandans. And that's a very important social aspect of our culture.
Sure.
If you cannot find a spouse in your particular community, let's say in Los Angeles, you can seek a spouse in the Ugandan community in Chicago. And so that has been very successful. And to date, we probably have in the region of 50 families that have been created as a result of this convention.
Moses, when did you come from Uganda?
I am one of those refugees that go all the way back to Idi Amin. I first came to this country in 1974. My family lived here as refugees for a year. My father was going to seminary. We moved back to Kenya for 3 years, and then I returned to go to college in 1978 and have lived here since. So I'm looking at 30-some-odd years.
All right. That's very interesting. And what do you do in life now?
I am a civil engineer by training. I'm a registered professional engineer, and I'm the president of a small consulting engineering firm in Pasadena, California.
Well, congratulations on all you've done here, and thanks for coming and talking to us about the Ugandan North American Association meeting in Chicago. Moses Wilson, thanks a lot.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.